I ran to I ran to Aventura last night
Uh-huh.
with my jogging.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
so I jogged the whole way. So I'm very relaxed right now. Yeah, but all good.
Okay, we left off by Umar of Nachman Amar Shmuel on Mem Daled.
Yeah.
It's I guess about 12 lines from the bottom. If you think Hashem that you're able to learn Torah every day, it's close of a learning. Hashem to be some Mikdash immediately. The last thing that we finished off was this it was a little complicated at the end. Was about until how low down on the animal was the shechita, was possible to do shechita. So we said that the last we said that until the stomach is hairy, ad kadeshiyash, until there's hair on the chest. So we said 1 second, but the tefach, the last tefach of the veshet, next to the esophagus, next to the stomach, is a problem to shech. That's already considered the inner stomach. So, and we're assuming that there's no hair on the esophagus. So the Gemara says two answers. One is that we have to correct it, and we say the tefach of the stomach is that upper area is considered the keres hapnimi, the inner stomach, and that would make it a different din. The keres hapnimi has a different din than the keres chitzayna. The keres hapnimi is a nekev, and the keres chitzayna is a tefach, or it has to be torn, not a hole. The other teretz was that Rav was talking about an ox that has a lot of hair, and the hair is even growing up the neck, up the esophagus, and so that's why when he said that the last tefach is considered part of the stomach, he said 1 second, but he said until where there's hair. He said, yeah, actually there is hair there. Okay. So now we start the new Gemara. Amar Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel. Nachman says in the name of Shmuel, Turbetz Haveshet Shenitel Kule Milechi Kasha. Turbetz Haveshet, we said, was the upper part of the esophagus. We said it was like the cap, like the helmet that goes over. If that was removed from the lechi, from the jaw, so it's kosher, still kosher. We're going to see a problem in a moment, but vitana tuna. So vitana tuna is translated two opposite ways. Tana is, I would understand, means the Tana, right? And tuna means he taught. The Tana tuna means that there was a brisa that taught the same thing as Shmuel. Over Rashi over here, that's the way Rabbi Nachman learns, by the way. Rashi over here learns that vitana tuna, that tuna means our Tana, and our Tana taught. So the word, which word means what? This gets switched between the Rishonim. Whatever the case is, that the din of Shmuel is supported by a brisa, because nitalechi atachton is kosher, because that if you remove the lower jaw, then it's kosher. Sounds good. You see, they each said it in an opposite way. Shmuel said if you remove the esophagus, it's kosher. You removed it from the jaw, and the brisa says you remove the jaw from the esophagus. Okay, so it's kosher as well. Now the Gemara says maskif Rav Papa. So Rav Papa asked the question. Maskif is like a logical question. It says ikir simanim, but you can't. We have one of the rules that if the simanim, if the trachea, the esophagus are dislocated, they're pulled out from their sockets. So then it's a treifa. Why are you telling me over here that it's kosher? So it says Rav Papa kasher masnisin. This is a Jewish way of answering a question. Is you ask a question on the one that's asking the question. That but 1 second. How can you even ask that question? Because he has a brisa. So I know I hear that there's a question, but you have to resolve it because there's a brisa that says that you're allowed to remove, if you remove the jaw, the lower jaw, it's going to be kosher. Nit lechi atachten is kosher. The Gemara says Bishlam must listen to Rav Papa like kasha hadi akari yakure hadi igam igume mi iloi semanim al Shmuel kasha. My answer is like this: that the brisa and Shmuel were not actually saying the exact same thing. The Brisa was saying that you cut away the jaw and you left the flesh attached to the upper part of the esophagus, or the upper part of the pipes. So you cut the bone away from the upper part of the pipe. So in other words, the pipes are still attached to the flesh. There's no bone there, but the pipes are attached to the flesh. Shmuel's din was you cut the flesh away from the pipes. The pipes weren't attached to anything. So therefore, Rav Papa, he has a question on Shmuel that you're dislocating the pipes, the esophagus. That's taka shaila. You're going to tell me, but Shmuel has a support from a Bryce. He says the Bryce is not exactly the same thing because the Bryce is just the removing of the bone, but the flesh still intact. So the Gemara answers the Kasha on Shmuel. Now we're finally accepted Rav Papa's Kasha on Shmuel. So now we go back. We say Leitei Makulei Alei Merubei. It doesn't mean that it's when Shmuel said that it's kosher. We're on page Mem Daled, 44a, towards the bottom. When the Brisa says that when Shmuel said that if you dislocated if you remove the turbets aveshet from the lechi, it doesn't mean that it's entirely removed. It means that it's majority removed, but it's still attached. Still attached. Okay, so that's not considered ikur. It's not considered that it's dislocated. That would be a teretz to Rav Papa's question. The problem is, Vamar Rabba Bar Bachana Mar Shmuel, but Rabba Bar Bachana says in the name of Shmuel himself that simanim shenidad leberuban is treifa. If the simanim are dangling by the majority, or the majority of it is dangling, which means it's only attached by a minority, then it's a treifa. So you're telling me that it's kosher because it's still partially attached. Shmuel says partially attached is a treifa. Some of Shisha Beider Avidi Hadi Ikbal Ekpule Hasam are probably supposed to be Baha Ifrika Fruke. It depends how it's partially attached. Could be partially attached because you were cutting away a little bit, like bit by bit, and you left part of it fully attached, but most of it was cut away. Other possibility is that you yanked it. Now, if you yanked it, so it starts to separate from different spots as you're pulling it, and then it stretches the other parts. So when you do that, it won't go back to heal. So Rashi over here says, Ifruk ifruke kedavar nekar b'kayach shenekar kan ma'at v'kan ma'at ad rubay da isimiyat ha'mechuber ina mechuber hilkach lav chiberhu delei hadabari. It won't come back to be reconnect because you stretched it, so it's not going to come back. So when did Shmuel say that it's nidal delu beruban, that we're not going to accept it, it's not going to be kosher? That's because you stretched everything. Part of it got detached and part of it got stretched. That's never going to heal. So that's a treifa. But if it was just being cut away a little bit, and it was cut away even a lot, but the part that was remaining is fully attached, not stretched, it was fully intact, so that could reheal. Okay. Psukas Agageres. It's the next piece in the Mishnah, the Elu Treifas, where we listed all of the Treifas. One of the Treifas was, the second one was Psukas Agageres. The first one was Nakuvas Aveshet, a puncture in the esophagus. The second one is the trachea is severed. The majority of it is severed. Tana Kama Psukas Agageres. The Brisa taught how much is Psukas Agageres. It says Beruba, majority. That's considered a treifa. If the trachea is the windpipe is majority severed, so then that's considered a treifa. Kamaruba, how much is the majority? So the majority is 51%, right? But over here it's not so simple. Rav Amar Reiv Oiver. We're on Mem Dalet Amud Beis. V'Amila Reiv Chalala. There's two opinions. What Rav said. Rav said the majority of the thickness, or Rav possibly said the majority of the hollow. The difference is, the reason why this is a significant, there's two issues here. One is that the This is the pipe, okay? Let's say this is the trachea. The problem is that the hole of the trachea is not perfectly. There's one side that's a little bit thicker than the other side, which means that the hole is not centered. The center of the hole is not the center of the outer part. So roiv ivea, the majority of its thickness, means that you measure from the outside, and then you're measuring from the outside. So where is going to be the center? It's going to be right over here, right? But if the center of the hole, roiv chalala, that's going to be over here. That's going to be over more. So which one is it? This could make a big difference. You have to measure how to measure the trachea that's severed. Well, was one time such a story. There was an animal, the neck was cut, and the question was it considered a treifa? So Yosef v'kabodik Rav started to measure it by the majority of the thickness. Well, okay. Amalei Rav Kana Ravasi Rav, very common. Rav Kana and Ravasi. They tell Rav, Limadetanu Rabbeinu B'Reiv Chalala. That's not how you measure. Master, our teacher, you taught us that you measure by the majority of the whole, not the majority of from the outside, not the majority of the thickness. So, Shadri Lakami de Rabba Bar Bachana. They sent it to Rabba Bar Bachana. Now, you remember from Sanhedrin that Rav and Rabba Bar Bachana went to learn by Rebbe. Actually, I'm not sure if it's Rabba Bar Bachana or Rabba Bar Chana. They went to learn by Rebbe. And when it came to Rebbe giving Rav smicha, he gave him smicha, but he didn't allow him to be matir b'chayros. He said Rav had his own opinion about which animals could live. It was very, very independent. He's one of these doctors that's like he did his own research. So he had things that were big chidushim based on his own research. Anyway, Rebbe didn't want to give smicha to Rav and about being matir b'chayros because it would shock the people. And that's one reason. Another reason is because he wanted to give cover to Rabbi Bar Chana. Rabbi Bar Chana should have something. Anyway, over here we have a shaila in Treifus. Rav wants to measure it one way. The students tell him, but you taught us differently. So they send it to Rabbi Bar Chana. And Badka B'Reiv Chalala. Rabbi Bar Chana actually measures it by B'Reiv Chalala v'Achshrei. You see, Reiv Chalala would be deeper in. So he was more lenient. He said it didn't reach the majority of the opening of the open area. The Zavan Minei Betleser Astiri Pshiti Bisra. And Rabbi Bar Chana actually bought from the animal. Tleisar, 13, he spent 13 half dinarim, astiri pshiti. He had 13 dinarim, he bought some meat from this animal that he, the Gemara asks, how was he allowed to do this? It says, Vatanya, we have a brisa that says, Chacham shetime, ein chavir shelatar, aser ein chavir shelahater. You're not allowed to go rabbi shopping. That's the first question. We're going to ask another question. How could he buy the meat? The first question is, how could he paskin what was on something that was paskined already? Rav already said that it was streif because Rav measured it from Reiv Aveh. So it says Shani Hacha. This is different. The Rav Layaser Mesa. Rav didn't actually say that it was streif. Okay. He didn't say it was streif. He was stopped before he got a chance to make a psak. It says, but how could he eat from it? Now it looks like it's Rav that bought it, as opposed to Rabbi Bar Chana. Does it say in English? Does anyone have in English? It says who bought the meat? No, it was Rabbi Bar Chana. Rabbi Bar Chana ate from it. Okay. So it says, how is he allowed to eat from it? But we have a problem because there's a pasuk in Yechezkel that says, "Vaksiv va'imera aha Hashem Elokim ini nafshi lo mituma nevelu trefalei achalti minu urei ba'adata v'lei ba b'fi basar pigel." You have this pasuk in Yechezkel that says that Hashem, my soul did not become contaminated, and I didn't eat any nevela or treifa from my youth until now, and I never and no basar pigel ever came into my mouth. And the Gemara explains, "Hinei nafshi lo mituma." What does it mean? My soul did not contaminated. I didn't have thoughts of lustful thoughts by day that should make a person impure by night, that should have a mission by night. Nevelo treifa le'achalti. I didn't eat nevelo treifa. Shle'achalti basar kais me'elam. Which means, you see, he has to be saying something that's not clearly a halacha. He has to be going a little bit above what it says. Otherwise, what's he priding himself? So he says, I never ate an animal where we said shecht. Kais is Aramaic for shecht. Where we said shecht it right away, because as soon it's going to die. So I didn't eat like an older animal like that. I never ate from an animal that we needed to paskin on it, that it was kosher. Right? Shailas mach treif. Right? Sometimes they say, don't ask the question. Don't ask the question if you don't want the answer. But here, even if the answer is good, Yechezkel wouldn't eat from it. I wouldn't eat from an animal that the parts that were supposed to be given to the kohen weren't removed yet. Okay, so whatever the case is, we have a kashan rabba barbachana that this animal had a shaila. They paskin on it, shouldn't eat it. One time we had in my house in Crown Heights, we had a bacher, then was a bacher, now he's a shliach. But since we lived in Crown Heights, so people would come for Tishrei or whatever, they would stay, and basically everyone in Crown Heights opened their house, and you had people staying in every room, like on the floor. And anyway, this bacher was staying by us. He wanted to help out, so he made the chicken before Shabbos. So anyway, my mother comes home, said, "Yeah, I made the chicken." I said, "Oh, thank you so much," whatever. Anyway, so which knife did you use to cut the lemon? So use the milchik knife. So I remember then. So Rabbi Marlowe, Allah Shalom was alive, so called up. He was the Rav in Crown Heights. We called Rabbi Marlowe's father. We called him up, and I remember him on the phone. He used a milchik knife to cut a lemon, and then put it in the chicken. And anyway, he says, he's quiet. I said, "Hello?" Like someone. He says, "Yeah, I'm thinking." Anyway, he says, you have to measure the blade of the knife. He says, "Do you know how to do that?" I said, "No." He says, "Take a cup, fill it with water, put the blade inside, see how much water spills over. Then you have to estimate how much contents are in the pan. If there's 60 times that amount of water that spills over, then it's kosher." Anyway, that Friday night, half the family ate the chicken, half the family didn't eat the chicken. I ate it, but and it was good. But the one said no, it was a shaila. Shaila, I'm not eating it. Other one said, "What do you mean? It's firmer than the Torah?" The Rav said it's kosher. It says no, but nevertheless, I don't want to. So anyway, I saw in the Bnei Yissaschar, actually. The Bnei Yissaschar says, quoting this Gemara, actually, at the end, it quotes the Gemara, but it says that eating is avodas habirurim. You're mevar the spark that's in it. It says, well, if you have something that had a shaila in it and the Rav was matir, that's mamish the best birurim. That's you're able to take the things that normally that wouldn't, the whole thing together, the Rav paskin on it, and then this is like you're taking the sparks from things that normally you can't have access to. Anyway,
and there's also a Baal Shem Tov story about that, about the neshama that was inside the chicken coming to him,
Oh, yeah,
somebody
I
didn't want
remember
to eat.
something like
Oh,
that.
hmm.
Yeah, I remember something like that. Hmm. So we have a problem over here that that how could Rabbi Bar Bar Chana eat from something that was paskin on? The Gemara says Hanimili Milsa the Talia B'Svara. Rabbi Bar Bar Chana Gamri Sama. What it would be like this was that if there was something logical that you had to paskin, and Rabbi Bar Chana had a svara differently or something, and he would paskin, so then maybe would say that he wouldn't eat it. But over here, why? Why wouldn't he eat it? I said because who says my logic is better than other logic? The logic can go different ways. Even like Chassidus quotes the that the one logic for the Mabul that because man's thoughts are rak kolayim, so that the logic after the Mabul is I'm never not going to destroy the world because man's thoughts are rak kolayim. So the same logic could go both ways. So when you have a logic, so you say, all of a sudden you're going to say that, like this way is 100% correct. Logic can go any way, depending on your mood. So however, Rabbi Baruch Hana, Gamri Samach, he had this in tradition. That's a different story. He heard it from his Rebbe. He heard it from his Rebbe that you go, Roiv Chalala, not Roiv Oivea, that the majority of the whole, not the majority of the thickness. So that he was confident to rely on that. But we have another problem with the story. Another problem is that he bought meat from this. Now, what's it called in cahoots? Maybe him and the butcher are in cahoots. They made up. You'll paskin that it's kosher, and I'll give you a cheap price. Well. It's chshada. The Tanya donas a din. Someone paskins. And Zika v'chayev time v'tir. Aser v'hitter. He's chayev. Whatever he paskin. V'chein edem sheidu. Kula Hashem likach. You're allowed to, whatever the testimony was, you're allowed to buy from that, whatever it is. However, but you should distance yourself from things that are a disgrace, because this really does not look right. Right? It doesn't look right when the one that just made a judgment on it goes and buys from it. It looks like you made up that there's some things that aren't appropriate. So the Gemara answers, "Hanimili mid mizdavin mishuma hachem mitkala mitakla muchach." If it was sold by estimation, then in estimation you can say like, what is it? It's like an eBay type of thing where you can put on any price on it and whatever. It doesn't. There's no set value for a lot of things. So then that would be a problem because you're probably getting a better price because you made the psak. But something that's sold by weight and there's a specific value to each ounce or whatever it is. So that's what's the shaila? You have the dafke have to go next door to spend the same money to think. It's exactly the same price. He had the rabba shara treifasa v'zalvim bisra. Rabba, it's actually supposed to be Rava. Rava, one time was mater a treifa. And then he bought from the meat. So, Amrale Bas Rav Chisda, his wife was the daughter of Rav Chisda. You remember? Rava marries the daughter of Rav Chisda. Remember by the dream interpreter, the daughter of Rav Chisda passed away. Rava says, "I don't forgive you for that because she was a good woman." And anyway, the daughter of Rav Chisda tells to Rava, he says, "Abba Shari Burcha v'lei Zav Minei Bisr." My father would never do that. He would be mater a bechar, but he would not buy any meat from it. The mater bechar means that the bechar is allowed to be shechted outside the Beis Hamikdash, right? It's even though it's officially a carbon, but once it gets a mum, then you could shecht it outside, because it has a mum. So my father, she says, my father would look at the mum and say if it's allowed, but he would never buy from it. So Rava says back to her, yeah, your father's right, but I'm also right. says Hanimili Bukhra Dashuma Mizdavin, Hacham Isklam Mucha. The rule by a Bachar is because it's Psulim Mikdashim. Actually, it's different than Psulim. Normally, Psulim Mikdashim are allowed to be sold by weight, but by a Bachar, you don't sell it by weight, you sell it only by estimation. You don't get into the nitty-gritty of how much it is, you sell it by estimation. So selling by estimation, that your father wouldn't do, because then he's going to end up getting a better price because he was involved in the psak. Okay, but over here it's sold by weight. Mayeka, Rava continues. He says, what's the problem? Mishum umtza malaisa, they're going to sell me a really good piece of meat. Umtza is a type of meat that's eaten raw, like sushi quality, sushi grade salmon, right? This is meat though. I don't know what they call it. But it's what is it? Carpaccio grade meat. Umtza. He says, Kol yom umtza malaises avnei. I always get the best meat anyway. They always save that for me. I always get first choice in the store. So that's not going to be a difference if I paskin on it or not. Yamar Rav Chisda. Chisda says, Ezo Talmud Chacham. Who's a Talmud Chacham? Zeharaya treifel atzmai. This is someone, a Talmud Chacham is someone that can paskin about his own thing, that is treif. Yeah. He's not concerned, he's not biased about his money that to make it to say if it's puzzle or to say if it's kosher or puzzle. He's going to paskin very according to the law. That's a Rav Chisda's taich in a Talmud Chacham. Rav Chisda is a seinu matanas yechia. Rav Chisda says, who's someone that hates gifts? Zeharaya treifel atzmai. The logic goes like this: that if on his own things he's not he's ready to forgo, so for sure he doesn't care about getting more things. A gift is something you get for free. But if he's ready to forgo on things that he already has, and to give that up, so for sure he doesn't. He's not interested in gifts and getting things for free. He doesn't need it. Darash Marzuchim Shmider of Chista Kol Mi Shekara V'Shana V'Raya Treifel Atzmei V'Shimish Talmid Chachamim Alav Kasavaymer Yigia Kapecha Kiseichel Hashach V'Teiblach. This is by the way, this is what Bnei Yissaschar quoted. As you'll see in a second. Says Marzucha says the name of Rav Chisda. Anyone that learns Chumash, probably Kaira is probably more than Chumash, more Tanakh. V'Shaina as he learns Mishnayos. And he doesn't care about his own money that he'll say if he'll paskin if it's treif. Shimish Talmid Chacham. Shimish Talmid Chacham, Rashi says, means that he learns Gemara. But what Gemara in those days meant, they didn't have an actual book, Gemara. Gemara meant that they would compare Mishnayos one to another to be able to answer the contradictions between the Mishnayos. And that's what Gemara is. And that's Shimish Talmid Chachamim. So Allah Kasavaymer, regarding him, it says, Yagia kapecha kiseichel, by the work of your hands you eat. Ashrecha v'teivlach. Lucky and it's good for you. Rav Zvid Amar zeicha v'neichel shnei elamis. Elam hazeh v'elam haba. Ashrecha b'elam hazeh v'teivlach v'elam haba. Rav Zvid adds in that he merits both worlds, this world and the next world. Rabbi Laz, okay. That was the what the Bnei Yissaschar was quoting over there about when you paskin on something. He calls it Yigia Kapecha. You have to learn the sugya, you have to work on it, and to figure out that this is going to be kosher, and then kiseichel, and then you eat it after you paskin that it's kosher. Ashrecha v'tayvlach, it's good for you in this world and good in the next world because of the birurim that you're mevara, and that's the way he types it. Rabbi Lazar Kiav Mishai. This is also in Bab Metzia. I remember this Gemara. Doesn't say it on the side though. This is Megillah. Okay. Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Lazar, when they would send him something from the house of the Nasi, he wouldn't accept it. When they would invite him, he wouldn't go. Amar, you don't want me to live. If you hate gifts, then you live. You're giving me gifts. You're trying to kill me. Reb Zera, ki mishadri leila shakel. Reb Zera, on the other hand, when they would send him a gift, he wouldn't. It isn't Bamitzia. I don't know. That's quoting something else. Ki mishadri leila shakel. If they would send him a gift, he wouldn't accept it. Yamzam also, but when they would invite him, he would go. Amar is yakuri udim is yakirbe. They're getting honor by me going. I'm giving them a gift. If he was eating it at home, then that would be a real gift. They wouldn't get it. But when they would go to their house, that would be an honor for them. Okay. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rav. Yeah. Nikva Knafa Mitzdarf in the Ruba. We spoke about the Gageres, the trachea. We said that if it's severed, majority, what's the majority was our discussion on the last page. But if the majority is severed, so then it's a treifa. And here we're saying, but let's say it wasn't actually severed. Let's say they put small holes in it, punctured little holes. It'd be like acupuncture, but those close up. I think those you don't even see them. This would be an actual hole, puncture, all the way around. And the question is, can you take all those holes, combine them together, and it's going to be mitzvah. All the holes together will join to be like the person that fell through the chair. You know, they have like a wicker seat. He fell through. So they said, what happened? He fell through. So he said, by Yaakov Avinu, all the rocks joined together. They said the tzaddik should put his head on my on me. All the rocks. He said, by me, all the holes joined together. They wanted the tzaddik to put to say this. On me, the tzaddik should say, and I fell right through. That was just anyway. So it's the question: all the holes joined together to be considered the majority. So most of Rabbi Yirmiyah has Rav said that they do. Rabbi Yirmiyah has a question. He says, why were you using this measurement? This discussion is really regarding Tumah. The question is, if there's a spine or or if there's a skull that's in a house, so if it's intact, so then it would give off impurity. But if it's missing, then it won't give off impurity. Now, how much missing? So it says the amount of missing that would cause someone to die. How much is that? So we said malay makdach. Malay makdach is the amount of a hammer that's used. I think it's the hammer. You know, the doctor bangs on your knee and to see if you have reflex, like a little hammer like that. So that amount that's missing from a skull would be enough to make the person or the animal a treifa, right? We said that they go humans and animals would go be the same. And we said over there that it joins together, that if there's a bunch of little holes, they'll all be mitzdaref to that amount. Alma, given the shir malay machtach, machtach mitzdaref, nachanami, given the shir ki isser, listen, the kisser mitzdaref. The Gemara is going to resolve this in a second, but the Gemara knows that what's missing from the trachea, if there's a piece missing, that shear is not roiv. That shear is the amount of a coin called the isser. Isser is a coin. If that amount is missing, then the animal would be a treifa. So why are you saying over here roiv? So the Gemara says, "Given the shear lekisser achanami, given the shear lekisser mitzdarfen, we should join it to the size of an isser." So the Gemara says right away, "You're forgetting what Rav's taught." That nekavim sheish bam chisar mitzdarfen lekisser, shem chisar mitzdarfen leruba. Depends. What type of hole is this? There's different types of hole. You can do a hole puncher, and a hole puncher knocks out a piece of the from the paper, the hole makes holes, and then you end up with the confetti. It says that's one type. And then there's a type that you use a pin. The pin just pushes the things to the side. It's not actually missing. It's just a hole, but there's nothing missing there. So if it's missing, then it's the size of an isser. If it's just a hole, that's like a cut. Just like a cut. A cut has to be rive. So over there we were talking about a hole that wasn't missing. That's just like a cut. So that's going to be rive. Amar Rabba Bar Bachana Rabbi Shua ben Levi. This is very uncommon to have Rabbi Shua ben Levi quoted in the halacha sugya. Nitla himena ritzu. Rabbi Shua ben Levi is very common in Agadata. I think the Gemara Baba Kama said Leichetzel Rabbi Shua ben Levi. There's a Baki in Agadata. Something. Anyway, Rabba Bar Chana named Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Nitla himena ritzu mitzterefes l'keiser. If there's a little strip that's taken off the trachea, it joins to be an isser. The size of an isser, we know, which we learned that the size of an isser would make it a treifa. Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Rabbi Bar Nachmani asked him a question. Nikva kanafa mahu. Let's say it has a holes in it, like a sieve, like a sieve, like we had before. Nikva kanafa. Amalei Ramana come sheish mechazar mistafin like a isser. Shem them mechazar mistafin leruba. We learned that if the holes are missing, then it joins to an isser. They'll be mitzdarif. If the holes are not missing material, they're just a puncture. So then it has to join to be the majority of the circumference. Gemara asks, "Ba'ifa mai." What about a bird? Now, by a bird, the whole trachea is less than an isser. It can't be that it has to be missing an isser. So. By an animal, an isser would be a measurement. By a bird, it's tiny. Rabbi Lazar explained this to me. He says, he says like this. You have to take off the area. You cut out the area that had the holes. Then you hold the pipe upwards, like this, right? Then you put that area that has the holes in it directly over it. If that area covers the majority of the opening, then that's considered a treifa. And if it doesn't cover the majority of the opening, then it's going to be kosher. If you want to remember how to do this, remember a sifter. A strainer. It's not enough as a strainer. Remember a strainer. How do you use a strainer? You put a thing with holes in it on top of a container, and you pour into it, and it strains out. So here also you're putting the piece of skin that has the holes on it on top of the pipe, and as if you're going to strain. Okay. See if this is a good spot to stop. No, let's go further. Nifchasa kedelas. Let's say you don't really have a hole. You have a hole, but the hole has a flap. It's like a door. Rav Nachman kadeshi kanesisa l'rachbay. If you could fit the coin, the isser coin in, now there's a machlekes what l'rachbay means, but if you can fit this coin in, then it's going to be treif. Nistika. Let's say it was cracked. Now, cracked is different than what we're talking about. We're talking about if you have the pipe. Yeah, you have a pipe. If you have the pipe. So we were talking about a hole or a cut going down like this, going down like this. Now we're talking about if it's cracked along the length of it. This is different because the reason is because the neck stretches. When it stretches the neck, it's going to close up. So here you can have a longer amount because it gets closed when it stretches. So chulia is usually a term for vertebrae, but over here it means a segment of the pipe. If there's a segment intact on the top, segment intact on the bottom, so it's going to seal. It will be able to seal itself up. It's going to be kosher. There's Amru Kamid Rabbi Yechanan. This they said this in front of Rabbi Yechanan. And Amar Rabbi Yechanan says, Machulya the Kamarav. What did Rav mean when he said a chulya? It says, Aleima apilin stayber mashul mat kshera. He says it doesn't have to be a whole segment. It could be even just a drop on the top, just on the drop on the bottom. That's already gonna help it seal up when it stretches. Amru kamid Rabbi Yechanan shmeid Rabbi Yonasan hachi. He told Rabbi Yechanan that Rabbi Yonasan said the same thing. Now, Amr Lahu, so Rabbi Yechanan says, Yodin chavrim be'avloi lefrushki aytaima. Wow, it's apparently the Babylonians, they know how to learn because they said the same thing like me. So that's pretty good. I'm impressed that the Babylonians are doing that well. That they can say, okay, let's leave it over here. We're up to Tani Reb Chia Bar Yosef.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, have a good day.
You too.
Chodesh Tov.
Yeah,
Chodesh Tov.
Chodesh Tov, bro.